All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Bree, and on behalf of Book Soup, I want to welcome you to tonight's event featuring William Keck in conversation with Kramer discussing When You Step Upon a Star, Cringeworthy Confessions of a Tabloid Bad Boy. We have a full calendar of events, so if you want to know what we have in store for this month, check out our website, sign up for our newsletter, or follow our social media. A few housekeeping notes. Please take a moment to silence your cell phone so there are no interruptions. And if you'd like to purchase a copy of the book, you may grab one at the front register. Your purchase tonight supports not only the bookstore, but also this great author, so thank you. Your support is always appreciated. And now to introduce our special guests. Catherine founded Kramer's Films That Change the World to showcase motion pictures that raise awareness of important social issues.
Positive ones, negative ones, so I think I'll start off with a couple of goodies from the back of the book. Bruce Willis says about you, "I'll find out where you live, Keck, and I'll come burn your house down. And you'll have no place to live."
Yep.
Didn't happen though, right?
It absolutely happened. Yeah.
Oh, well, it happened.
Oh, he didn't burn down my house.
No, but he was thinking about it.
He was not happy.
And there's another good one here. This is one of the funniest chapters. Leonard Nimoy says, "Listen, Keck, you pull any of that ear shit, and I'm out of here. Got it?"
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah, I brought up, I was introducing Zachary Quinto, the new Spock, to the classic Spock, Leonard Nimoy, and he was all on board until I suggested that he bring a pair of his ears and show Zach how to wear them. And he turned very, very nasty to me at that time, but he showed up.
Yeah, you'll be reading that in your copy. And then some really positive ones. The great Henry Winkler, who's so nice, says, "Will Keck loves Hollywood, knows Hollywood, and writes about his idiosyncratic journey through the dark and the light of Hollywood." That's true. And then Donna Mills, who's wonderful, who I have had the pleasure of working with, says, "Thank you, Will, for giving us a book that offers a look behind the curtain, but also restores our faith in mankind." Well, I like that, right? Isn't that great? So now I'm going to dive in a bit.
Please.
So it's going to be a conversation, but I'm going to open it up to questions from the audience. So if you have a burning question, while we're talking, please feel free to raise your hand, and I'll call on you just like in school. I could say let's start at the beginning, because your book also brought me to tears, and I related to so many things, and you're so honest, but I just love the whole Dolly Parton part, and her being one of my sheroes. Can you talk about Dolly and what that whole thing was like?
Well, yeah, so when I was in 5th grade, I dressed up as Dolly Parton in a Hollywood, it was a Halloween parade in elementary school. And I brought Dolly on to Home and Family, which is the show that I was producer on at Hallmark. And I was producing her, and we hit it off, and we were talking about her support of the gay community. And I showed her this photo of me. I guess I was maybe about 7 years old. And she looked at it and said, "Honey, your mama didn't know you was gay?" and she signed the photo to Dolly number 2 from Dolly number 1. So it's been great, these full circle moments. And I do write in the book about how it took me longer than most these days to come out, and how Dolly was one of the people who embraced me. And then she invited our show to Dollywood, and we did a week's worth of shows there in Pigeon Forge. So very special lady.
Definitely. I mean, there's so much in the book that I had to pick and choose what to ask you, or we'd be here we'd be here like 24 hours because I'm so curious. My mom, the great Karen Kramer, who's not able to be with us tonight, but she worked with Aaron Spelling. She was like in the first thing he ever did, and she did a lot of shows. She has great stories, but, I would have her tell them from the audience if she were here. But
I'd love to hear them.
I'd love to hear just, again, about your experience and how that led you to where you are now, and what you learned from working with Spelling Productions, and some of the great adventures that are in here, and then maybe something that didn't end up in the book.
Well, it was kind of a miracle. I write in my book about how much I love Dynasty, and that went off the air with a cliffhanger in 1989. And I was a student at USC, And I read in Variety that they were going to do a wrap-up miniseries. And this would never happen now. I called Aaron Spelling Productions. There was no computer applications the way things are done now. They put me through to the woman who was hiring, and she hired me. She hired me to work as assistant coordinator on the Dynasty reunion. So 2 years after I was watching, I was sending faxes to John Forsythe and taking calls from Joan Collins. And I write how Linda Evans is just as you would imagine her to be, and Joan Collins is also just as you would imagine her to be. Very, very difficult lady. And there's a whole chapter about my experiences with Joan in there. And it's the one chapter where I actually have verbatim Q&A because her quotes are just so priceless. She's recording me as I'm recording her and warning me constantly that she's misquoted, that she's going to come after me because she loves to sue. So she's a fun, colorful lady.
I love that part,
Yeah.
and it kind of, made me think, well, she's a diva, and you have a whole chapter on divas. And
I have 4 sections in the book.
Four sections, right, yeah.
Diva section.
Music divas and just divas in general. So talk a bit about Britney Spears and Mariah Carey and Celine Dion and that whole, description of what diva means and from your standpoint, what it means.
Well, so I want to say I have a couple ladies here that I'm really happy to see. Janae and Frances, I met them at Agape, and the reason I'm saying that is that the morning that it was after Princess Diana passed, and like so many of us, we were just completely horrified by that tragedy. But it was an extra level of horror for me. I went to Agape that morning, and I was looking for some kind of a guidance. It was like Cinderella had died. But I had been involved in 2 high-speed chases with celebrities. One of them was Britney Spears, and we chased her all the way down the 405. There was a caravan of about 8 of us, and that was actually by accident. I was at USA Today, and I wanted to do a day in the life of a paparazzi. I didn't know where it would take us, and it ended up taking us on this crazy, I think we were going 95 miles per hour at one point. But the other high-speed chase was with Elizabeth Taylor, and this was when I was at the Inquirer, and they had me doing a stakeout of her house, and they knew that she was going to be going into the hospital for a procedure. Now, I'm not proud of a lot of these stories. These are from 30 years ago. But this was an example of when the good little angel got the better of me, and after we did a few twists and turns down Nims Road, I believe is where she lived, I said, what am I doing? I'm chasing this legendary goddess, not going shopping on Rodeo Drive. She's going to the hospital to have her procedure. And I pulled over to the side of the road and I let my prey go. The editors were not happy with me, but I made some mistakes. Sometimes I made the wrong choice, but sometimes I found the moral, the light spot, and I went toward the light. Yeah, but not always.
Yeah, when you read the book, you'll it's like you'll be living through Will's eyes, in his soul. And there's a lot of heartwarming things in there too, and also dramatic and. But just keeping it on the divas, I had mentioned Donna Mills earlier, who I had the good fortune of working with in Turnover recently, and she gives you a really nice quote about the book. And can you talk about, interviewing her and the memories and how, like, from the Inquirer to Home and Family, maybe give us a little snapshot into how some of these same individuals that you had issues with. Then you saw them many years later and made up with them.
Well, so a lot of the stories are from those early years at the Inquirer, but it's 30 years of interacting with these celebrities. And so I came to Hollywood because I wanted to meet these, what I called my surrogate family members. I was an only child. My father died when I was 5. So the Bradys and the Carringtons and the Ewings became my surrogate families. But the way I met them through the Inquirer was by crashing their funerals and their weddings and sneaking into their hospital rooms. So as you can imagine, they didn't become my friends at that point. But over the years, most recently when I worked at the Hallmark Channel, I had a chance to invite them to come and showcase them and protect them. So that's the whole trajectory here. So even though there were people like Donna, who was scared of me back in the day, she came to know the other side of me. And so I was very lucky that Donna and Joan Van Ark and Linda Evans, a lot of them contributed very nice words of support in there, showing that a leopard can change its spots. In fact, Julie Newmar, that's the quote she has in there, a leopard can change its spots, which was so perfect, coming from Catwoman herself. So yeah, so I mean, it's the extremes there. On one end, you're working for the Inquirer, and on the other end, the Hallmark Channel. So I mean, the only secrets there we were exposing were, I guess, puppy raising tips and chocolate chip cookie recipes. So, you know, it's the both sides of the spectrum.
And then USA Today, that was a lot of things in the book. How was that different for you than the Inquirer, Home and Family? I mean, what did that feel like a different approach?
Well, what I write about in the book is that even though I quit the Inquirer after 3 years, it took much longer for the Inquirer to quit me. I was now allowed to go into the dressing rooms, and I was invited into their homes for very intimate interviews, but I was still, that little devil in me was still there, and I was still trying to, I guess, stir the pot to get exclusive, extraordinary news-making quotes, and it got me in trouble a lot of times. So I think it took another 10 years probably or so before I completely purged the Inquirer from me, and I was able to tell stories without embarrassing them, you know, or digging too deep into their personal lives. And I think, you know, I'll say also, Kat, that I also write about when I was at the Inquirer, I was living a double life. I was deep in the closet, so it was very ironic that here I was digging into their personal business while I was completely lying about my own life. So when I decided to come clean, I signed up for the Landmark Forum. And I think, has anyone here done the Landmark Forum? It used to be S training way back when. And one of the women in the forum was Judith Light, who is such an advocate for the LGBTQ community. And I ended up coming out to her. And shortly after that, I gave my notice at the Inquirer. I couldn't lie in my personal life, and I didn't want to lie for a living anymore. So that's one of the arcs in the book.
There's a lot of great arcs, and you've been through some trauma, which I think a lot of people don't. You know, there's people that talk about their trauma, and I've been through it, and I think a lot of people have, and they don't reveal that. But some of the chapters in here really, you know, like I said, I was very emotional.
Yeah, what can I ask you? You said you cried.
Well, you had a relationship with someone that caused you to have a lot of trauma and have to go through therapy.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, we've all been through that, and I think you were so brave and so honest to bring that up, because, you know, in reading the book, one may expect, oh, it's only just going to be tabloid stories, and like a lot of it is, but Will really gets honest in there, and there's so much to learn. I mean, you have the lessons at the end of each chapter, each section, and they're very insightful. They're not just funny and humorous, they're also, I mean, I learned from them. So Can you talk a bit about the trauma, and also, if anyone has read the book, that was in the book, that told you that it helped them, or any kind of anecdotes?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I wanted to make it clear that I wasn't once again exposing celebrity secrets. That's not what this book was about. I did that back in the day. This was my apology to them. So the secrets I'm exposing are my own, how I got these stories, what I did to get these stories, and it's embarrassing, some of the things. I mean, one of the things that I did, it's funny and embarrassing. Some are more funny, some are more embarrassing. Telly Savalas, he was Kojak. I think we remember Kojak, We Loves You Baby. He was buried in an unmarked grave, we found out. His widow had not taken the time or the expense to get a marker for him. So the Inquirer would send me over the hill to get photographs of his empty plot of grass. And I just got sick of doing this month after month after month. So I finally called Forest Lawn and I said, what's the holdup here? And I may have called as a member of the Savalas family to get this information. And they said, well, as you know, your family's not speaking to each other. And we have this stone here, but we were just waiting. And I said, oh, yeah, well, we're not speaking with each other. Would you mind calling the family and getting everyone together Thursday at 4 o'clock so we can install the stone? And so that's exactly what happened. And we had a photographer there, and Telly got his stone, thanks to me. So,
Wow.
But so I'm confessing these stories, but I didn't want the celebrities to be scared that this was going to be a tell-all. So I shared as many of these chapters as I could with the celebrities to get the responses. Marcia Cross from Desperate Housewives, she was the first person to volunteer to write an essay. The story there was that I was sent to her house to do an at-home interview to meet her lovely new twins. And that morning, as I arrived at her home, a text arrived that there were nude photos that had just been leaked of Marcia. So here I'm debating, do I bring this up in her home interview? Do I risk ruining the entire interview? And I did. And it was a horrible experience. I left with my head hanging low. But Marcia is a very forgiving person. She said, Will, we had so many wonderful interviews over the years. I don't focus on that. You shouldn't. So she wrote a lovely page in the book. And you mentioned the Bruce Willis quote. Well, Bruce Willis sadly is not able to write or comment right now, but Sybil Shepherd, who's Moonlighting co-star, she wrote a nice page in the book. So yes, a lot of the people did have a chance to read, and some decided that they didn't want to say anything. Victoria Principal, we'd had a rocky relationship, but she called me and we had an hour conversation that was off the record. It was healing, not public, but private. So I think a lot of people appreciate that I took a different route with this. I think people expect it to be one thing, but it's really something else entirely.
Yeah, we just honored Sybil Shepherd in Palm Springs with the Palm Springs International Comedy Festival. I wanted her to come tonight, but I don't know if she was able to. But that was very good.
You're Sybil?
She made me writings.
I'm sure she's on her way. She's looking for parking.
But there's so much. I mean, it's like myself being a stand-up comic, and you have that whole Phyllis Diller.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. I was laughing so hard. I mean, you'll all appreciate about her trying to, you came up with the idea about a new fang. And this is just worth gold when you read this. Talk a little bit about.
There's a variety of people here today of all different ages. I grew up loving Phyllis Diller. Some of the younger people will not know who Phyllis Diller is. So I do, at the beginning of every chapter, I explain who these people are. I relate them to someone similar today. For instance, the Kardashians, would have been the Gabors back in the day. So you have a sense of who these people are, so you can enjoy the stories. So where was I talking about? Where was I going with this?
No, the contest. The contest.
Yes.
So
Phyllis had a imaginary husband named Fang that she'd always talk about in her act. And so Phyllis, though, had been very lonely for a long time. I got to know her, and so I came up with an idea to have a contest to find Phyllis her new Fang. And she loved the idea. She loved being in the Inquirer. That's the deal. Some people hated being in there, but other people, like Roseanne, if they weren't in there, they would do something to get in the Inquirer. So Phyllis would always invite her for her birthday parties, and we got lots of applications, and the person was going to be flown in for a dinner with Phyllis. But the Inquirer was pretty cheap, so it had to be a California person, actually. We didn't announce that. But so Phyllis had chosen somebody that she liked, who seemed like a youthful kind of a guy in Palm Springs. He played golf. But there was another photograph that really just kind of captivated me. He looked like an old movie star. He had been a hypnotist. His name was Dr. Emile Franchel. And I said, Phyllis, you're such a spectacular person. You're a legend. You need somebody like Emile Franchel. So she begrudgingly went with my option. So Emile arrived at Phyllis's favorite restaurant in a long, old limousine, and he had to be about 92 years old. The photo he had submitted was from the 1960s, and Phyllis was furious with me. This guy had mustard stains on his suit.
Oh, Lord.
So there are photos of that in the book, and she's just kind of grinning like this. But she called the guy. She called the other guy, the runner-up, and I don't know what happened, but she was going to have a golf date with him, I think. So weird. So I just can't believe some of these things actually happened.
I know there's a couple others, like on a more social issue focus, the Chrysalis Ball and Rebecca Gayheart and Eric Dane, and that's a very dramatic section that also made me emotional. And it shows, the human side of you, and also of some of the situations that you had to deal with. Can you talk about that? About the suicide of his father?
Well, that's the punchline, and that's a horrible punchline. That's the deal. It's interesting having this conversation because some of the stories are just so dark and horrifying, and then we go to a story like Phyllis Diller. That is the book. It's a roller coaster ride of emotions. This was rough. So Rebecca Gayheart, actress, she was in 90210. She had been involved in a horrible accident. She was on her phone and hit a child. And so she was doing a very good thing with her life. It was started as community service, but she took on the cause of the homeless. And she was working with an organization in downtown LA called Chrysalis, which was helping homeless people find jobs. They would come in and they could get clothing. So I thought this was a great story for USA Today, but at the time, Rebecca's husband, Eric Dane, had just become McSteamy on Grey's Anatomy. So they wanted him. They didn't care about Rebecca. So, you hear like USA Today, there's not a lot of difference sometimes between the Inquirer and USA Today. One is respect, the other's not, but they have similar kind of agendas. So the deal that was presented was, yeah, we'll do this story, Rebecca, if we can get Eric as part of it. And he agreed. He wanted to help his wife. So I met them downtown, and they were going to show me Christmas. Then we were going to take a walk through Skid Row, get some photographs. And Eric just seemed very kind of distant. And I said to Rebecca, I said, is there something wrong? I asked him, if he had a hero growing up, and he just kind of shrugged and walked away. She said, well, don't take it personally. Eric really didn't have a hero because his father committed suicide when he was a child. So this was a secret that was told to me while Eric Dane was the hottest new star in Hollywood. And once again, like the March Across situation, I'm presented with, do I bring this up? Do I write about this? Now, William Keck would never in a million years go there with it. But I think I was trying to prove myself. I was still a little devil, a troublemaker. And I talked to my editors about it, and they said, absolutely, we're going to include that. That was told to you while you were with them. You'd never met them before. You weren't a friend of theirs. You were an on-the-record reporter doing an interview. So a deal was made, and we ended up not publishing that information. Eric came back on the phone with me, and he actually was appreciative that we buried this. And he instead gave me another personal story. The only reason I write about it in the book after all these years is because he ended up at some point coming out with the story when he was ready to. I kept it a secret all this time, but yeah, I'm exposing how deal making is done. A lot of times that happens. At the Inquirer, I was amazed that Bill Cosby would always come on the phone whenever we needed a story about Father's Day tips, good parenting. And I'm like, but Bill Cosby is like one of the biggest stars in television. Why is he coming on the phone with the Inquirer? Well, all these things we know now about Bill Cosby, the Inquirer knew back then. They had a file. They had a safe in Lantana, Florida, with all of this blackmail, basically. And Bill Cosby knew that if he didn't come on the phone and give the Inquirer some Father's Day tips, that other stories may appear. So these are some of the secrets that. Can
you reveal any of the other, that they had blackmail, or?
I just remember one time I was sent nude photos of Don Johnson. And it was just a weird photo of him reading USA Today with no pants on. And the Inquirer was not going to print these, but they wanted the photo. They paid for the photo so they could put it in the safe in case they ever needed to contact Don Johnson. I'd heard another story about how photos were submitted of Angie Dickinson involved in a three-way liaison with two other men. And a reporter just knocked on her door, presented the photos. She looked at them and said thank you and closed the door. And I guess an unofficial deal was made at that point that if they needed Angie, she would come on the phone. So that's the brokering in the tabloid world.
Well, before I open it up to questions, we're very close to Halloween. Yeah. And I love that chapter section about Patricia Arquette and the Horror Nights. So tell that. I was laughing, and I thought that was such an amazing story. Well, that really, needed to be seen in a movie.
Well, this was just an example of good intentions gone wrong. By this point, I was at USA Today, and I was working with the celebrities on cheery, on-the-record interviews. And Patricia Arquette was doing Medium, a spooky show. So I came up with the idea to have Patricia go to Halloween Horror Nights with the three little girls from her show. And at the time, Halloween Horror Nights was not exactly as terrifying as it is now. But she loved the idea. Patricia loves Halloween. And so we got on a tram with the two older of the three girls who played her daughters. And chainsaws were coming at us. And we passed by the Psycho House, and these girls were just absolutely terrified. And so, what started out as a feel-good Halloween story with the girls of Medium turned it up into them probably needing therapy. So you never know what's going to happen. And there's a photo of me in there with Patricia and the two girls, and we're all dressed up in our Halloween costumes. So you win some, you lose some. But she loved it. Actually, she thought it was, she has a very dark sense of humor. She was laughing. She thought the whole thing was hysterical. And she was telling me, I guess she had a necklace with a tooth on it. And she said that was her son Enzo's tooth, that she liked making jewelry out of, out of things like that.
Well, that picture was so amazing. That was before, right? That was before all the
Before,
horror
oh
stuff
yeah,
happened.
we were smart. We always got the photos first before the ball dropped. Yeah. And one more story I'll tell is that when I was at the Inquirer, I was a huge Dallas fan. I never talked about Dynasty, and so I said, whenever there's a chance to do a Dallas story, please let me know. And they said, great, we have a Larry Hagman story for you. I'm like, oh my gosh, I get to meet JR, terrific. Well, no, we want you to fly to Northern California and tell the family of his liver donor that their dead relative's liver is now in J.R. Ewing. So we found the woman in her little apartment complex, and the first thing we did was we got a photo, ran away with the photo, and then I dropped the ball, and she was obviously surprised. And I think it led to a big payday for her from Larry Hagman as a thank you. And Larry Hagman wrote about that in his book. And that's Kelsey Grammer. I'll just mention that. Kelsey Grammer also wrote about me in his book. And he said that he invites me to fry in hell.
Yes. That was one of the quotes, or there was something.
So Kelsey read the chapter. He chose not to comment, but he let me go ahead with it. And but again, I'm not exposing his stuff. I'm apologizing to him for some of the things I did to him that weren't so nice.
Well, you did bring up Larry Hagman, and so that leads me to Barbara Eden. Okay, again, my mom, Karen Sharp, who's not here tonight, but she's alive and well. She was on I Dream of Jeannie, and I love the picture of you at Barbara Eden's home, but all those Larry Hagman stories about his temper tantrums and everything, and just a little bit more. Can you elaborate? Because that's a big part of this.
Well, that's in Barbara Eden's book.
Yes.
So she told those stories. It's a good book. I invite you to find Barbara Eden's book here out of the bottle and send her some love. But yeah, Barbara also wrote a lovely quote. She actually welcomed me to the Authors Club, and she said that she was a New York Times bestseller. Wished me the same. I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm selling a few books, and I'm really excited that you all were here to hear some stories. Again, I got to meet a lot of my legends before they passed. Barbara's still with us. So it was a little boy who made his dreams come true. He made some mistakes along the way, but he luckily had a chance to make good to a lot of these people before it was too late.
Well, do we have any burning questions? Don't be shy. Anyone?
Hi.
Oh, yes.
Well, this is kind of a comment, but did you pay attention to the federal trial of Donald Trump this past year when they had the editor on?
Absolutely, David Pecker.
And that must have been so bizarre for you. Was that a procedure that they used that you said was in place all those years ago?
Catch and kill.
Catch and kill.
Yeah, I don't know that terminology was around, but it was a version of what was happening, sort of, I guess, with Bill Cosby.
That's how I heard that. Was like,
yeah, I mean,
wow,
they bought Stormy Daniels' story with the intention of burying it because David Pecker was friends with Donald Trump. So when that came out, yeah, I was kind of excited because my book was about to come out, and I was thinking that the Inquirer was going to come back into the news. The Inquirer is not at all what it used to be. And in fact, if you go to the grocery store, you probably have a hard time finding the Inquirer a lot of times. I went onto the Inquirer's website to see if that was, they were putting a lot of money into that instead of the print. Well, they had not updated their website in 3 years. One of the lead stories on the Inquirer.com was why James Caan can't find the right woman. Well, because he's been dead for 3 years. That's why he can't. So I gave a copy of the book to the man who brought me into the Inquirer, and he said that there's about 4 employees left, and he doesn't even know if he'll continue through the end of the year. The days of the tabloids are gone. It's TMZ and social media now.
That's what I was also going to ask, is how much has it changed, or has it not changed at all? It's just different formats.
Well, social media is the biggest change. Is that secrets don't keep a week. The Inquirer always sat in this stuff. Those secrets would never last now. And with social media, a lot of the celebrities choose to break the news now themselves. They announce their divorces before the tabloids can expose it in their nasty way. So yeah, everything's different. Yeah.
It changes like in a year, actually. Any other questions? Oh.
Yes.
You've had more incarnations than even I realised that you've had. Do you have a favourite one of the many jobs that you've done? Do you have a favourite one? And if so, why?
Wow. With all the horrible things I had to do with the Inquirer, it was fun. I mean, I was in my early 20s. I got to meet these people. I got to play spy, and it was sort of playing actor. It was sort of like working for the mafia, but it was exciting. I mean, being chased and jumping over fences to get into places I wasn't supposed to be in. It was like being a kid, and I was getting paid a lot of money. I was getting paid more money than any other people I was working with or I was friendly with at that time. So it was a blast. It ultimately just became too much of a moral conflict. I mean, some things I really hated doing. The O.J. Simpson thing really changed things, and I just did not want to be part of that. There's a big story I was involved in there that you can read about in the book. It's actually the first story in the book, but I just wanted to get back to doing Betty White gardening tips and things like that. So I didn't want to do bloody crime scene stories.
And chapter 1 is the Brady Bunch, right? And because I've worked with Susan Olsen, and we think of the Brady family, but that was a really, just to open with that.
Yeah.
How did you decide, like the order of how it was going to go, how that, and the editing process, just from you as the storyteller? How did you decide and pick and choose?
Yeah, it sort of just kind of developed organically. I mentioned there are 4 sections. Let's see if I remember them now. The first is Disturbing the Dead and Near Dead, and those are kind of the funeral crashing stories. And then after that, there is, there's Dangerous Divas. There's Down and Dirty, which is going to a nudist colony with Tammy Faye Baker and going to try to find out if Kelsey Grammer's fiance had been a hooker in Las Vegas, and all sorts of kind of dirty stories like that. And then there is domestic disturbances, and that's kind of baby stories and marriage stories, wedding crashing stories. So it did sort of lay out organically. Death was a big thing for me as a kid, I think, because my dad died. I was really kind of obsessed with that, and I was kind of like Wednesday Addams. Instead of collecting baseball cards, I collected celebrity obituaries. So it just sort of made sense that I started with that, because when I came to the Inquirer, they sent me out on these stories with these legends that I wanted to meet. I was at Dean Martin's funeral in a tree. So then from that, though, after I kind of made peace with death, I got to play more, and I came out, and so the diva section sort of made sense with that. I got to be a diva. I got to be in General Hospital last year, so I was seen with Morgan Fairchild, so I got to live out my diva fantasy. And then it ends with the domestic stories, because I'm lucky that I have found happiness now. I'm not a scared, closeted guy who is trying to be somebody he's not. I have a partner who is with me here tonight and with me always. So these are happy stories at the end. And I write about how it was Raquel Welch. I met her later on at Home and Family, but it was a photo of her on the cover of the Inquirer that really was the kicker that made me quit. And it was a sad photo of her looking despondent, the sad, lonely life of Raquel Welch. And I'm like, no, this is not how I'm going to make my living, talking about the sad, lonely life of Raquel Welch, when I'm all too familiar with what had been the sad, lonely life of William Keck. So.
Well, that sounds like a docu-series or a mini-series.
Yeah.
So who's going to play you in? Have you been thinking about having it? I'd like to produce it. Who would play you, unless you want to play yourself?
Timothy Chalamet plays everybody now, so I guess if he can do Bob Dylan and
yes.
Willy Wonka, he can maybe try me.
Anybody else?
One.
Oh, hi. Hi, Neil.
Really like the whole journey that you've been on, and I just imagine the whole 20s guy.
Thank you.
It's inspiring, because not everybody transforms or becomes their authentic self, or has the courage to do that. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you. It's easy to draw a conclusion. This guy was an asshole, but I did have a friend. He bought the book I had. I didn't know he did, and he said that he was really responding to the fact that we have choices in life, and roads not traveled and choices made. So yeah, I appreciate that you see beyond who I was back then.
My question is, it's kind of a funny question. So if you could have the Inquirer today, any way you wanted it,
Ooh.
and there were stories that you'd really kind of like to go into, where would you go? Or what would you like to know about?
Great question.
If I could sort of make the Inquirer or something?
Maybe hear about it.
Well, I'll say this. I tried that. When it was time for me to quit, I didn't totally quit. I flew to Florida, to Lantana, and I met with the editors, and I said, Guys, I like you guys. You're good guys. Actually, yeah, they all went to church on Sunday. They were actually a decent group of people. I think they had a lot of sins to apologize for. But I said I can't do certain kinds of stories. I really want to work on staying here and doing on-the-record interviews with people. And I was doing some. And they said, let's think about that. Give us overnight to think about that. Come back tomorrow. So the next day, I came to them and they said, Will, we love you. You're a really good reporter, but the kind of stories you want to do don't sell papers. They're not cover stories. So we'd love to have you stay for half your salary. And I understood. I said, you're absolutely right. I agree with that. I'm not meant to be here anymore. And hopefully I contributed somewhat to the kind of stories that I think people can respond to that aren't just the salacious. So, I mean, yeah, I'd like to say that I would love to do a story with Gardy Tips with Barb Reedon, but I don't know that would sell too well. You know, I think we are in desperate need of good news, but when people have tried to do shows all about good news, they failed. People Magazine tried years ago to do a feel-good show, and Roma Downey Jr. Tried to do a show. I think she still has a website, Good News, but we're not aware of these things. For some reason, we're drawn to the dark stories, and People Magazine has just become so dark. I still go on there every day, and there's celebrity stories, but so many stories are about horrible things that have happened to families that we really don't need to know about. I mean, it's awful that it happened, but why do we need to know about these things? So, good news. We can just spread good news wherever we can.
I think inspiring stories are stories like yours, where you were here and then what were all the steps that took you from here to here?
Yeah.
That's kind of inspiring.
And I will give kudos to my publishers, Jacobs Brown. This is Stephen, and he wined and dined me at a Denny's when he got me to sign the contract. And Stephen encouraged me to put more of myself in there. It was really a series of celebrity stories. He said, Will, you're the character in this. We want to follow your journey. So that's when I really came forward with the plastic surgery stuff. And I met Victoria Principal by booking an appointment with her plastic surgeon husband, Dr. Harry Glassman, and I went ahead with the nose job, and I met Victoria. So
You can tell that story about Dr. Harry Glassman.
Well, that's the story.
Victoria.
That's the story. Yeah,
There's more to it than that, but you have to read the book. So we don't want to give all of it away.
You know, when you come from a place of being all about secrets and not sharing things about yourself, it's just so great when you get to a place where, and I guess you get to an age where you just don't care anymore. And it's so liberating just to let it all hang out and let people have a look. It's nice having no secrets. To come from the Inquirer to a place that we're here today at Book Soup, it's liberating, isn't it? I mean, I think a lot of us probably have gotten to that stage in life, and whew.
Well, the end of the book, the last few pages is pointing about Jerry, your mentor, and I had a tear in my eye about that too, and all the metaphysical kind of seeing him again. Can you talk a little bit about that without giving too much away, though? Because we want you to go home and devour the book after hearing a little bit about it.
Well, I mean, it's sort of magical. Jerry was my bureau chief at the National Enquirer, and he was very much a father figure to me. And he would often bring me into his office and give me lessons. Be true to yourself and choose your battles. Because of that, I dedicate the book to him, and every chapter ends with a lesson learned, something I learned that I think helped me grow and make better choices. But I remember years ago when I was still closeted, I went into a gay bar, the Roosterfish in Venice, and Jerry, he was a family man with a wife and 2 kids, and I would help out at the birthday parties. There was Jerry sitting in the gay bar. And he looked at me and he said, "Lost? Looking for directions?" And I said, "What are you doing here?" He's like, "What are you doing here?" So Jerry was in the process of coming out. And I looked back at some of the lessons that he had taught me about being true to yourself. And I always thought it was just about career. But he saw who I was going to be. And he was trying to really teach me about being true in all aspects of my life. But Jerry was not able to be here. He actually, I will say, he passed away just a few years ago. But right before he died, I was dropping clothes off out of the closet, and I scraped a car. I scraped the side of a car, and I left a note. I'm a good guy. On a Bed Bath & Beyond coupon, and I stuck it in the windshield. I said, "I'm so sorry I hit your car. You just give me a call." And I waited a couple days, and the phone rang. And who do you think it was? Whose car I hit? I say, "Kecky, it's Jerry. You hit my car." And I hadn't talked to Jerry in 10 years, and so we met at the smokehouse. I paid him for the car. I took him out for some prime rib, and then he died shortly thereafter. So it was a gift I felt from the universe that I got to see him magically one last time.
And there's some things that happened during the pandemic when you were writing, when you were putting the book together. Is there anything that you really wanted to put in that you decided to leave out? Or I'm sure maybe there's more than one, but anything you could reveal?
No.
It's all in there, folks.
It's pretty much, I did keep in mind that my mom was going to be reading the book. And so I did give her a heads up about some of the Vegas stories, but I felt she didn't need to know every little detail. So it's almost all in there. 99%'s in there. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Well,
In the back?
Hi, I actually didn't mean to stop by this event. I was just passing by and I saw that you were a journalist, and I had kind of been a journalist in middle school, high school, and even in college. I just graduated.
Congratulations.
With biomedical engineering.
Oh, wow. You made a really smart choice not going into journalism.
I'm currently in venture capital, so it doesn't matter.
Really smart choice.
Okay.
Are you hiring?
Thank you so much for coming.
But
This is the place to be tonight, seriously.
Yes, I loved it. I was kind of listening in for a little bit from far away, and I kind of crept up, and yeah, I think I definitely brought down the average age of the room.
Yeah, you did. Well, thank you. What's your name?
Samiksha.
Samiksha. That's a beautiful, beautiful name.
Thank you so much.
Well, and I don't know if you were here, but I do explain that some of these old celebrities, I do sort of explain who they were and relate them to the Kardashians and Mileys of today, so you can appreciate who
I
they
have
were.
a question.
Yeah,
so,
great.
When I was in high school and writing, we were wanting to make these pieces that were, revealing something, like you said, a darker side.
Yeah.
So we would cover what kind of meat is there in the lunch, because it looked really nondescript. And we were like, this has to be something wrong. And we felt that that was an act of, conscience.
For sure.
That we were trying to, get closer to the truth. But as you revealed, there's lines to be crossed there,
For sure.
right? And to take those into consideration. But the public almost craves that, for you to push that boundary. So is there a way for journalists to inject conscience in the public? Because usually the public creates the demand for pushing the line. But is there a way journalists can push back?
Well, you have to, if you're a reporter and you're working for an editor, you just have to ask yourself, is this something that I want to be part of? And I had to do that a lot. And I think it's great to find out if the cafeteria is serving rancid meat. But do we need to know what's happening in Will and Jada's bedroom? Probably not. I think the Inquirer worked really hard to get their stories. Everyone thought they just made them up. It was all about aliens and Elvis sightings. They spent a lot of money to fly us all over the place. I remember I was flown to Aspen to follow John Kennedy Jr. On skis. I mean, I tried. He was really good at skiing, and I was not. But so it wasn't a matter of them not. They were good at reporting, but what they chose to cover was the problem. They chose to cover things that I just don't think we need to know about, that were overly invasive. So as a journalist, you decide where you work, who you want to work for. TMZ, they're always hiring, and I can tell why they're always hiring, because it's probably very hard to work there and ambush people at LAX and ask about their drug bust. So, congratulations on graduating.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Right here.
Yeah, I was wondering, so after you decide to leave the Inquirer, now you want to get another job.
Oh, yes.
And your itinerary and your resume shows National Enquirer. How difficult was it to cross over to the more legitimate reporting?
It's impossible. Yeah, we're probably there, right? Are we? No, we're good. Okay, great. Yeah, it was impossible. I was tabloid sleaze. Nobody wanted to hire me, and I was lucky enough to get a job at Soap Opera Digest. They hired me, but I got in trouble there too because I was writing about the days of our lives, actresses, scandals. One girl who was the fresh ingenue, Christy Clark. She was saying how she and her boyfriend at the time were making adult movies, and so constantly the producers were getting furious at me, and Soap Opera Digest was having to send apology baskets to the General Hospital people, and Sunset Beach was on. So they fired me. They fired me, and they said, you know what, you're a great reporter, but you should be working at a place like Entertainment Weekly. And luckily, in about 8 months, I was freelancing for Entertainment Weekly. So I just had to find my place. You know?
But for quite a while there, you were just trying to make an inroad.
Yeah. I had an A or an E on me. This Enquirer burned into me.
What are you currently working on, though? Can you talk about any projects or any other books?
Well, I will say this, and then maybe we should probably wrap it up because I think people have to get going. There was a story in Variety. I have one of the women who writes a commentary in my book, Linda Gray, Sue Ellen Ewing. She wrote a commentary after my Larry Hagman chapter, welcoming me to the Ewing family. We partnered on a project we're trying to do. It's a Christmas movie that would be set at South Fork Ranch. And she and Patrick Duffy would be playing ghosts, not their old characters. They would be playing similar kind of characters who are haunting South Fork. And a young Taylor Swift kind of girl comes in wanting to rent the ranch, and they're not so happy about that. So they scare her and then try to play matchmaker. So I'm going to be down at South Fork with Linda and the book in a couple weeks, and we're going to be meeting with the owner of South Fork and trying to make a deal happen.
Great.
Yeah. So vintage TV. I'm still loving vintage TV and trying to keep that going any way I can. Yeah, I love these people.
Any last burning questions?
So I was thinking, as you were talking, that entertainment. This is what's in every dentist's office. This is what people are pointing through, and so you made a move to that glossy. How do you compare the Enquirer, which really started everything, and then where you ended up, which is really kind of the mainstay in every American home? I mean, it's more common than fashion magazines.
Yeah, I mean, in comparing the two, I would just say that the People magazine, they saw the full game. They wanted to continue working with these people. They wanted to be invited to the Oscars and to their premieres. The Enquirer didn't care about that at all. It was all about the instant headline. And I remember the first chapter is all about my obsession with the Brady Bunch and how I met each of them and got into trouble with each of them. But then Chris Knight, Peter Brady, writes a lovely commentary at the end about how he understood why I did what I did. I think that, I don't know.
So Entertainment Weekly, you get invited.
Yeah, I was doing a story with Florence Henderson at the Enquirer, and the one request she had was that I not reveal her age. And I said, sure, we won't. She was young. She was 61 at the time.
This was a very funny.
She gave me a very intimate interview about how she and her hypnotist husband were trying to make their marriage work. That she was into sex and he was into boating, so they had sex on boats. Really, a great interview. All she said, please don't print my age. So the issue came out, and what's on the cover of the Enquirer is Florence Henderson, 61. I'm crazy about sex. I was devastated, and I said to the editor, why would you do this? She was working with us. Nobody wants to work with us. She did. What's she going to do? Sue us? It's public record how old she is. And I mean, so the People magazine would never do that. I did a piece for Closer Weekly. They still love the legendary People, and I did a piece with Tina Louise. And Tina never does interviews. People has wanted to do interviews with her for years, but they say you've got to say your age. And Closer very kindly said, we will respect your request and not tell your age. And we didn't print it. It was so great to see that magazine come out and have the age 90 not included in the issue. They were of their word, which made me feel much better. Yeah, I think that's really about it. Yeah.
Well, it's almost time for everyone to get started. I am going to do one little plug, as Will said it was okay.
Yeah, please, absolutely.
So this is called When You Step Upon a Star. Yeah. This coming Friday on October 18th, and some of you, James is going to be there, some people in the audience. There's going to be an actual star ceremony, and the theme is When You Wish Upon a Star. That's what we're calling it. Because so I went for, it's Juanita Moore, the late actress. It's a posthumous star. You may know her best from Imitation of Life. And so the star ceremony, I'm actually, my mom and I are both part of the nonprofit that's responsible for nominating her, and then we're hosting a private after party. But the ceremony is at 6100 Hollywood Boulevard. It's about 6 stars away from my father's star, which was Stanley Kramer. He was the first completed star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and she did 2 films for him. So it's a really beautiful tie-in, and she starred with Lana Turner in Imitation of Life, and Lana Turner's star is in the same area. So it's open to the public, so please come. It's 11:30. Maybe get there earlier than that for the right place to, watch the ceremony. There'll be a lot of great people there, great celebrities, and it's going to be historic. She would have been 109 on October 19th. So we're celebrating her birthday as well.
19 years younger than
Yeah.
Tina Louise.
Exactly, yeah.
Puts things in perspective.
So if it weren't for the title being, and it's just like amazing, but Will's unfortunately not going to be there, but fortunately for him, he's going to be at the Hollywood show.
So an autograph show this
yes.
weekend. I'll have a table there with the book. But good luck with that event. I love that it's almost the exact same title
Isn't it?
as
Yeah,
mine.
it's
I think you'll have a great turnout. I remember her. She was an amazing actress. Thank you for doing this so
Thank
much.
you. It's my pleasure. I really learn a lot from this book. I'm not just saying that. I read the chapters over and over, and I always wonder though if there's something you did leave out that should have been in there.
I'll tell you over lunch.
Okay,
We'll do that.
you got it.
Yeah. But thank you. It's the kind of book you can read a chapter here and skip through 3 and go back, and people say it's great for the bathroom reading, and I take that as a compliment.
Thank you.